Hey, how are you all doing? So, my name is James Brockbank. I'm managing director and founder at an agency called Digital Loft over in the UK. And today I want to talk to you about how to use PR tactics to build better links. And I want to start by addressing a challenge that we all face as SEOs, and that's how to scale link building. And well, what we all know is that if we want to gain a competitive advantage, you need to be building better links than your competitors, but links that your competitors can't easily replicate. You see, if you're chasing the same strategy as everybody else, then how can you expect to win? And I'm going to take a pretty good guess that most of your competitors are going to be building links with, say, paid placements, guest posts, or perhaps resource links. And what I'm not going to do is get into the sort of morals and the ethics and the effectiveness of these tactics. That's not what I want to talk about today. But what we know for certain is that these are all tactics that your competitors can easily copy. They're easy to replicate. You write a guest post, within a month of that, at least a couple of your competitors will have spotted that you've written that and had a link from it in Ahrefs, and they will reach out and they will get exactly the same link. No one gains a competitive advantage. So really, we just end up in this sort of cat and mouse scenario where nobody's gaining those links that really have an impact because nobody else has them. And today I want to talk to you about how you can build authority links from the world's biggest publishers, the likes of CNBC, Fortune, Mashable, or the New York Post. Just a couple of examples of linked pieces of coverage that I've built for clients in the past couple of years. And really, the sort of tactic of building links from the press comes down to, well, the way we say it is to create something awesome and make sure that everybody knows about it. But there's just one problem with that. And that's, well, most people actually don't know how to go about creating that something awesome, at least when it comes down to the ideas. And a point I just want to quickly make is that link building shouldn't take place in its own silo. A lot of SEOs are guilty of this, of addressing link building solely as a link building tactic. But as far as I'm concerned, the best strategies will help you to earn links that are actually clicked on by people who could become your next customer. They help you to earn links from sites that your target audience is actually visiting. This can help you to build brand awareness, and we all know that Google is rewarding those who are building brands. And lastly, these best strategies can help you to earn links from within content that positions you as experts in your sector. And as SEOs, we've all spent the past couple of years talking about EAT. And of course, one of the big factors on that is demonstrating that expertise. And there's very, very few better ways to do that than have authority publications all across the web citing you as experts in your field. But it all starts with a great idea. If you haven't got a great idea, you haven't got a great campaign. And well, the problem is that having great ideas is the hardest part of digital PR. It's the part that many SEOs and marketers struggle with. Why? Because, well, it isn't easy. It's not easy to think like a PR, to tell stories that still land links. But when you do have that great story, your outreach efforts become so much easier. Why? Because you're pushing something out, you're pitching something that journalists actually want to cover. They actually want to link to it. And actually, that means the reliance on having a really persuasive and convincing pitch email, outreach email, it's not as important. You're letting a great story essentially do the weight and the heavy lifting here. And when it comes to ideation, there's a sweet spot where your campaign should sit. And really that sits somewhere between the content that you want to create as a brand, the sort of heavily branded content, really, really close to the products or services you offer, and the content that journalists want to publish. Somewhere in the middle of that is what we call the campaign sweet spot, which are ideas that make sense for you as a brand, but are also easily accessible by journalists and their audience. And it's also really important to mention at this stage that everybody has different ways of coming up with ideas. I could turn to any one of the people on my team and I can guarantee that they have a different way of coming up with ideas, finding those seeds of inspiration to come up with those campaigns. And really that's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to sit here and talk about the theory on what you could do. What I want to do and what I've decided to do is sort of take a deep dive into the ideas behind 4 successful campaigns. I'll break these down. There's 3 campaigns that I've been involved in and one that we just absolutely love as a team and that we reference all the time. But by doing this, hopefully you can see how these ideas were formed and hopefully take it away into your sort of own campaigns and your own businesses. So let's kick off with talking about inspiration-led ideation. And to do this, I'm going to talk about a campaign of ours called the Cosmetify Index. Really, this is essentially a look at the hottest beauty brands of, in this case, 2020. We launched this in Q1. And it ranked essentially, I think we looked at 200 brands and we essentially rated and ranked them on popularity to reveal essentially what we're buying and the beauty brands that consumers are purchasing right now. But I want to tell you the story about how we got to this idea. And it all started when we were approached by the client, really with a brief of how do we make noise for a startup in a competitive space. This wasn't an established brand. This was a startup with absolutely no brand recognition in their space. We needed to create noise, and we needed to create noise fast. The problem, and one of the challenges that we faced, is that in the lifestyle sector, many publications are heavily driven by product roundups and style guides. They're not relying on PR stories the same as, say, finance, automotive, even some of the entertainment sectors. So we had to cut through not just the noise of other brands, but we had to essentially create something that really stood out against the norm for these publications. So we turned, as we often do, to BuzzSumo to do some topical research and find what content was performing in the sector that these publications cover. Really, the target publications were lifestyle publications in, sort of women's fashion and beauty. So as well as looking at what was performing in the beauty space, we also looked at fashion. And well, we came across a campaign called the List Index. Now, what this is and what this was is a quarterly ranking of fashion's hottest brands and products. But when we look at the formula and the methodology behind this, we can see that this index takes into account global list search data, so essentially site search data, conversion rate, and sales. Well, we had one problem. We loved this. We thought, okay, there's something in this that could be applied to the beauty sector, but we didn't have sales data. We didn't have conversion data. Whilst they had well over 100,000 products on the site, they were a couple of months from launch. We just didn't have access to this data. So what did we do? Well, we turned to public data that demonstrates popularity. We combined data from Google Trends with data from social media platforms such as Instagram that showcased essentially the influence that these brands had on consumers. We looked at things such as engagement rate, number of hashtags for the brand, and the followers on the channel. And we combined these into an index to essentially reveal which are the hottest and most popular beauty brands right now. And it was a really successful campaign. But what we need to remember is there's a big difference between inspiration and imitation. Yes, we were heavily inspired by the List Index, but we absolutely didn't imitate it. Why? Because we took what had been proven to work in a comparable and complementary sector, but then we added our own take. We added in things such as 2019's Rising Stars of Beauty. Essentially, the individuals in the beauty space who've seen the biggest interest in sort of in visibility and in influence in the space over the past 12 months, as well as the most powerful individuals in beauty. So these were essentially the sort of powerhouses of the industry, those who are really at the top of their game. These sort of things weren't in the List Index, but we took a format that had proven to work and we were inspired by that and we built on it to make it our own. But what I'm sure you probably really want to know is, how did this land in the press? Well, this actually landed really well. We landed links and coverage from publications such as Pop Sugar, from In the Know, from Vogue, topically relevant lifestyle publications where our client's audience were hanging out online. For a beauty brand looking to build links, you cannot get better links than these. Not only did they work great from an SEO perspective, but they sent traffic. We could track conversions through. And we were able to control conversations as a startup around the most popular beauty brands in the world. We positioned our clients as thought leaders by cleverly using publicly available data to tell stories. And the real result of this was topically relevant authority links at scale from well over 100 unique domains that sent traffic and positioned as experts. And what I want to add in at this stage is that this is a campaign that we relaunch sort of twice a year. We can continue to control those conversations. We regularly have journalists reaching out and asking when the next edition will launch. We've found something that works, and we're able to keep updating it with new data to keep those conversations ongoing and those links coming in. And really my top takeaway here is to monitor what others are doing and don't be afraid to take inspiration from their campaigns. But just a quick note on where to find that inspiration. Well, if you're not already, I recommend you go and sign up to the Content Curated newsletter. Every month, you'll get a sort of a roundup of great campaigns into your inbox. And also go and follow Digital PR Examples on Twitter. Again, almost every day, you'll see great campaigns from all over the world shared that you can take inspiration from. So then moving on to our second sort of approach to ideation. Well, we call this launching something bigger and better. And to talk you through this, I want to dive into our 2018 Pet Rich List campaign. Now, this was a campaign that we launched for a pet insurance comparison platform. And as you can see, this has earned well over 500 links to date. And it's a bit of a fun campaign. It's a little bit silly, but it was really, really effective and in line with the client's brand and their target audience. But one of certainly my personal favorite way to come up with ideas is to just spend some time browsing the publications that we want links from, so to get a feel for the content they're writing, not even necessarily PR campaigns, just articles that they're writing. And sometimes I'll go back 2, 3, 4, even 5 years sometimes and have a look at how these performed on social, how they generated tractions. And when we came across an article in Country Living titled "The World's Richest Chicken Has More Money Than Most Americans." Really? A chicken that's a multimillionaire? This sort of stood out amongst a sea of pretty bland and boring articles. And we started digging deeper into this. And we came across another article from Vanity Fair that was titled "What Happens When Someone Leaves Millions to a Pet?" Now, this sounds absolutely crazy. But there is sort of a world of rich individuals who are leaving an absolute shit ton of inheritance to animals. And whilst this sounds, it does, it's absolutely crazy. But we knew we were onto something here. We could find articles, but nothing sort of more substance. So what did we have here? Well, we had this concept of dogs worth millions. And actually the world's richest pet is a dog called Gunther, who I think is worth $375 million. Crazy, crazy money. And then we started thinking about how could we portray this? Well, we're all familiar with the Forbes Rich List. So we sort of started thinking, and again, it was a bit of fun at first. We thought, well, could we launch the Pet Rich List? And that's exactly what we did. We dug deep into articles, into references around these pets that have been left crazy money. And every time somebody does this, it gets covered in the press. But nobody had ever really gone deeper than maybe 5 or 10. And some of them were old, some of these were out of date. So we compiled the Pet Rich List. And really what we did is we went bigger and better than the articles that were already out there. We didn't totally reinvent the wheel, but we found, again, inspiration in articles. This had never been sort of compiled together. So we did something bigger and better than what was already out there. And it paid off. We landed link coverage from places like the New York Post. We hit the Metro. Again, really authoritative top-tier publications. But this really is an example of how you can create content that can be fun and entertaining and still use this to build topically relevant authority links. And especially when you're working in sort of the pet sector, you can be really, really fun. It's lighthearted, but it's possible to do it in other sectors as well. But I want to drop in here the importance of being reactive and the fact that these sort of data-driven creative campaigns shouldn't be a one-trick pony. They can continue to work hard for you sort of going forward on sort of instances, but you need to keep an eye on what's happening in the news, and then you can be reactive. And February 2019, we heard the news one morning that sadly Karl Lagerfeld had passed away. Now, we knew we had a campaign banked, the Pet Rich list, in fact, where his cat, I think, appeared third, fourth, maybe fifth on the list. So we thought, okay, he's given money to his cat before. There's a very, very good chance he's going to do it again. So we jumped onto a tactic called newsjacking, and we pitched out to all the journalists who were writing about his death about where his inheritance may go, which of course was to his cat. So we hit coverage from publications such as MarketWatch, from CBS News. I think in total we hit about 50 pieces of link coverage in the first 24 hours. And really, this was a real example of why monitoring the news and reaching back for your banked campaigns that, yeah, they've probably worked well in the past, but you can give them another lease of life and sort of bring them back and have them continue to work hard for you. But the key takeaway here from sort of, making things bigger and better is read the publications where you want links from. See what they're writing about. What are they talking about? What have they talked about in the past? And think about how you can make that bigger and better and accessible to more publications. So then moving into what we call data-led ideation. Well, the campaign here is what we've now dubbed our InstaWorth calculator. And as you can see, this has earned over 1,750 links, one of our best performing campaigns ever. And really, what is it? Well, it's a calculator that allows you to put your Instagram handle through, and so you can see how much you could be earning as an influencer. But where did this come from? Well, initially, this came from a trending topic. The client who we were working with they're a photo printing company who specialize solely in printing Instagram photos. You connect Instagram and you can print your photos, and they post them to you after a couple of days. So we wanted to build topically relevant links around things such as Instagram, around photos, but we needed a hook. And really that hook was the trending topic at the time. We're talking September 2017 here, of influencer marketing. Influencer marketing was just starting to get big. And well, we started looking for data. We started looking for interesting pieces of information on the topic. And we came across the annual State of Influencer Marketing report. Now, this was really, really interesting because what this contained was one stat, one piece of information, and that was the value and the worth of a single follower to an influencer. So we started thinking, well, what can we do with this data? All we really had was one value. But actually, small pieces of data, when used in the right way, can be really, really powerful and really valuable. So we turned to our swipe file. And my take is that every marketer should be building a swipe file on Pinterest. Essentially, pin successful campaigns where you love the format. And when you need to try and figure out what you can do with, say, a piece of data with an idea you've had, you can just turn to this. Start spending some time looking through your swipe file and sort of re-inspire yourself, remind yourself of successful formats. And that's exactly what we did here. We had a piece of data, we just didn't know what to do with it. And well, we had in our swipe file, I had this mortgage calculator from Bankrate. Now, we know that calculators are a really, really proven type of linkable asset. They always work really, really well. And if we actually run this calculator through Ahrefs, we can see that it's earned over 1.6 million links. Now, yes, of course, this is a mortgage calculator, perhaps slightly more accessible and useful than an Instagram calculator, but we knew there was something in it, combining a trending topic with a proven format based on a really, really golden nugget of data. We came up with this concept of what's your InstaWorth, and we built a really simple tool that allowed anybody to put their Instagram handle through and essentially figure out what they could be worth as an influencer. And it took off really, really well. We hit headlines such as, could you be the next big Instagram star? This calculator tells you exactly what your photos are worth. Now, as a link builder, which is ultimately what I am, this is great. Authority links from a top 10 national newspaper, from topically relevant content around Instagram and photos, the two core topical entities that our client site was about. We hit places like Insider, again, very, very similar topics, and it just took off. It did really, really well. It went, I would probably potentially call it semi-viral. Now, it works really, really well because it was so simple, but it was so accessible. When there's a trending topic, which Instagram user doesn't want to know how much they could be worth? And we found that even those with a couple of thousand followers were sort of worth maybe $20, $25, which is more than most people were expecting. It really took off and resonated with people. But what we can also take from this is that when you create an evergreen asset, you can still earn links long after you stop promotion. And that's exactly what happened here. If we look at this article from Vanity Fair, over 2 years since we launched the calculator and really stopped heavy promotion, well, this article went live, and this was essentially Vanity Fair's own article about the social influence of Kate and Meghan. So what this actually meant is that, well, they cited our campaign. We had created a resource and they used it as their source of data, and they cited it. And the top takeaway here is that you should be building a swipe file of formats. Then you compare them with different data sources to essentially create a great campaign. But then the last sort of approach I want to look at is what we call find a format that works and then flip it. And to talk you through this, I'm going to talk about a campaign that I didn't launch. This isn't our campaign. This is just one that we love. And this is by a company called Wallet Hub. And this looks at property taxes by state. And we can see that it's earned 19,000 links from well over 3,000 domains. And it's earned sort of national coverage from essentially headlines such as homeowners pay the most property taxes in these 10 states, with a really emotive hook to any one of us of where does your state fall. But then we also see it hooked into things like, here's how much you'll really need to buy your first home, another clever hook. And then we see sort of regional coverage, the example here from the Washington Examiner. And, well, this is really, really super smart for 3 key reasons. Well, the first is that when you can hook a story both nationally and to every single state, you've hit gold. You've got so many different ways that you can span out opportunities to pitch into journalists, so many relatable stories to so many different publications. But there's also an opportunity here to refresh the data and pitch it out every single year, which is exactly what Wallet Hub do. Those 3,000 referring domains haven't been earned from one pitch out. They've been earned, I think, over 3 or 4 years, where it's been updated time and time again. But this is also super smart because it's a format that can be flipped. In this instance, Wallet Hub have found new factors to analyze and flipped the format. And this is really, really clever when we look at how they're using digital PR. Run the domain through Ahrefs, and we can see many, many, many campaigns that take this very, very similar format, comparing cities and states. And we can see here there's at least 10 of them that have earned links from over 700 referring domains. This is a big deal to an SEO. These sort of campaigns are very, very powerful, but they're so relatable. And the top takeaway here is that when you find something that works, don't be afraid to flip it and double down your efforts on those areas. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. You just got to create something that people want to talk about, people want to cover, and that people want to link to. But ultimately, what you really need to make sure you're doing, and the ultimate recipe for success with digital PR, is not being afraid to think big. So thank you very much. Been great to present, and I hope you've learned some great insights there. And thank you very, very much for that.